One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all. And in the darkness, find them.
Mr. Mash, is it fair to say the topics we talk about on this program are mostly things that I'm interested in?
I'm kind of interested in most of the things we talk about. Your heart is more in it than mine in most cases, I would say.
On this most recent episode of the Bangers and Mash Show, we're doing things a little backwards. Today's topic is something you're passionate about.
That's right.
Way to make that weird,
So
bro.
would you say that we're going to go on an unexpected journey? I guess since we planned this, it would be a most expected journey.
Yeah, this journey has been planned out for about 2 weeks now. You could say we're back in the Hobbit again.
A bunch of short, hairy guys go on a mission to destroy a ring, kill a dragon. The good old stuff.
We are going on a journey to Middle-earth today. We're going to be talking about...
Or Arda, as the Middle-earth nerds know.
We're going to be talking about the film adaptations of the works of J.R.R. Tolkien today, the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies. As a child, I saw the Hobbit cartoon, and I read the book, and I was a reasonable fan of those things. But the Lord of the Rings trilogy never really hooked me. For a long time, I used to shit on these movies. Can't say they're bad films, but my general consensus has been that they're just not really my thing. I've reassessed the films to a degree. We'll talk about that today. We were talking about earlier how the Peter Jackson films were not actually the first live-action adaptations of Tolkien's work. Apparently there was a Russian TV movie version of The Hobbit made in the 80s. In the 90s, I believe it was Icelandic television miniseries version of Lord of the Rings called Hobbit. I've seen still images from the Russian Hobbit. Everybody's wearing very brightly colored costumes with very cheesy-looking face paint on. It was obviously a low-budget production. We won't be talking about those. We're going to be talking about mostly the live-action films, but we're going to start the conversation with what was the introduction to Middle-earth for most people our age. You and I think, were first exposed to this through the 1977 Rockin' Boss animated version of The Hobbit.
15 birds in 5 fir trees, their feathers were fanned in a fiery breeze. But funny little birds, they had no wings. Oh, what shall we do with the funny little things? Oh, what shall we do with the funny little things?
When I was going through my fantasy phase, I think this was on a VHS tape with Flight of Dragons and The Last Unicorn. Pretty good selection.
I don't think I've ever seen Flight of Dragons.
Oh, you'd like Flight of Dragons.
Sorry.
Do we need to discuss the plot of The Hobbit any?
People know it.
Bilbo Baggins is a hobbit.
He joins a party to make a party of 14.
Right,
so
because there are 12 dwarves and Gandalf.
Right.
And the dwarves are on a quest to get their
Yes,
gold
the
back.
dwarves are... Let's see if I can do this.
Oh, God.
Thorin.
Everybody knows Thorin.
Durin. Balin. Buffle. Bimble.
That's 5.
Dwalin. Nori. Is it Corey, Tori, Fori? There's a shitload of dwarves, okay?
Something I like about the cartoon version. It condenses the plot. The Arkenstone is gone. The Werebear is gone.
But on the other hand, it really does cut out a lot of important stuff.
I guess. But you have to keep in mind, this is a 77-minute cartoon. It does successfully tell a story in 77 minutes that has taken Peter Jackson upwards of 9 hours to tell.
That's fair. My biggest complaints with it is a lot of big points in the book, like the Battle of the Five Armies, gets mentioned.
But I think that's all right. Bilbo does not participate in the battle. Since this is his story, it's okay to gloss over that.
That's fine. All of the stuff that actually sets up the other books is completely cut out of it.
Which is fine, because this is a self-contained
if it
story.
was meant to be a standoff film, that's fine.
It was. This one gets right to the point. Within minutes, Bilbo's hanging out in his hobbit hole, and Gandalf shows up and says, "Hey, you want to go on an adventure?" And he's like, and the wizard goes, too bad. It hits all the important stuff. I don't feel like this ever feels rushed or overly tourniqueted.
No, I feel like it does.
Oh, what's that?
I mean, I like it. How can you not like it?
It's a very charming film.
It does a lot of the Gandalf disappears and then shows back up, Gandalf disappears, shows back up. Doesn't really give any explanation.
Which is pretty much how it is in the book. Gandalf just disappears for long periods of time. No real explanation of what he's been doing. That stuff was filled in later, though knowing Tolkien, it was planned out far in advance anyway. What do you think of the animation in this?
Well done.
It actually looks really nice in parts. Some of the animation is a little more stale. There are a lot of scenes of people standing around and talking. But for a cartoon made for television in 1977, I think the animation in this holds up really, really well. Character designs are very painterly, and they seem to recall antiquated wood carvings. In my brain, this is still what Middle-earth looks like. The goblins are awesome looking in this, man. They got the huge horns and the big mouths,
well, yeah.
skin, all that stuff is cool. What do you think of the wood elves looking like Martians, though?
Yeah, that's a little weird.
That's a point of contention for many Rings fanatics. Do Lord of the Rings fans have a cute monicure like Trekkie?
Ringers.
Ringers. What do you think of Smaug? They say Smaug in this. Cat-like whiskers.
Very weird looking.
Yeah, even as a kid, I thought the face is odd. The voice cast in this is really good. John Huston as Gandalf, spot-on casting. The guy who voices Bilbo is named Orson Bean, which even sounds like a Tolkien character.
Is he related to Sean?
I don't think so. Otto Preminger, critically acclaimed director and part-time Batman villain, is the voice of the Elf King.
Which Bat villain is he?
He was Mr. Freeze on the 60s series.
Oh, okay.
People criticize the live-action Hobbit films for their use of music, perhaps not realizing that music
is in the book.
Most of the songs in the special are straight out of the book. All the Goblin songs are great. The funny little things, 15 birds.
My favorite song is the Misty Mountain song.
That's well used here. And do you know who does the singing voice of the goblins in this?
Casey.
Thurl Ravenscroft, otherwise known as the voice of Tony the Tiger. Immediately recognizable deep voice. And now that I've said that, you recognize it.
I do.
Obviously, this is a pretty quaint production. Some of the narrative problems really are inherited from the book. At the end, when Bard needs to slay a dragon, oh look, here's my magic arrow that never misses. I'm a big fan of the cartoon version of The Hobbit. This might actually be my favorite Middle-earth related thing.
My problems with it are noted.
Beyond the farthest reaches of the imagination, in a time when the world was young, in what is known as the Third Age of Middle-earth, a tale is told. Then will mortal men with dwarf lords and elven princes come, to stand together in a single noble army and thunder against all the hosts of darkness. This is the magnificent gift that J.R.R. Tolkien left to the human heart. The Lord of the Rings.
This movie.
Interest in Middle-earth was pretty high in the mid-70s because the next year, in 1978, there was a theatrical animated adaptation of the first and a half books, The Lord of the Rings, it was called. I'm not the biggest fan of the Jackson films, but you can't deny how successful Peter Jackson was in creating a believable universe on screen. Ralph Bakshi's 1978 animated adaptation is less so. I'm a fan of Ralph Bakshi, previously directed Fritz the Cat and Wizards. Wizards is a great movie. You've seen Fritz the Cat, though, right?
I have seen Fritz the Cat.
Same director.
Is that the pornographic cat movie?
Yeah, well, it's not pornographic, but it is X-rated.
He screws a bunch of people in a bathtub.
Yeah, that does happen.
The rotoscope is what does this movie in.
Oh, absolutely. At this point in his career, Bakshi became very dependent on rotoscoping, and it's terrible in this.
I don't even really know what it is.
They basically film live actors, and then they draw over them. But the problem in this movie is they barely draw over them. 90% of the animation in this is rotoscoped, and it was clearly a budget-saving decision. The main characters, Frodo and Gandalf and Aragorn, at least have distinct faces, but the background characters don't, and the orcs get it the worst, I think. They're obviously just extras with plastic vampire fangs or gorilla mask on, red and black animation drawn over them.
Mostly black.
Looks bad, man.
You looked at that and said, oh, this is good.
And sometimes it seems like characters are painted on as backgrounds and they're not even interacting with the rest of the cast. The animation is really
shitty.
Poor. The Balrog, a dude in a lion mask with big rubber wings. Really badly paced film. 1.5 novels are being condensed into...
Now, why do you say 1.5?
Not all of the Two Towers. Granted, it has been a few years since I've seen this. From what I remember, this concludes when Gandalf rides into Rohan, right?
No, it concludes at Helm's Deep. He comes down and they kick the ass of the They're just orcs in this. They're not even Uruk-hai.
And that was something I've always wondered. What's the difference between regular orcs and Uruk-hai?
Uruk-hai are half-breed between orcs and elves.
They're
like hybrid.
Yeah, they're the super soldiers of the orc army.
Yeah.
Getting back to the cartoon, I remember this having a really sudden ending.
Whoop the army's ass, and then he throws his sword up into the air.
Right. And then a narrator says, thus concludes the first part of Lord of the Rings or something.
Right.
But I remember the pacing in this sucking.
Yes.
Drag, Frodo's being chased across the river, goes on forever. I seem to remember them on the other side of the river for a really long time. Most of the supporting cast is giving a short stick in this. You never really find out much about Gimli or Legolas or the rest of the Fellowship.
Well, and Gimli isn't even a dwarf in the cartoon. I think he's supposed to be, but the way they draw him, he's the same.
I think executive meddling was high on this. They obviously did not have enough money to do it. Some people are a little easier on this movie, but the 78 animated Ralph Bakshi version of Lord of the Rings, I don't know, man, it's bad.
If it wasn't for the animation, I think it'd be a lot better.
Where there's a wit, there's a way. Where there's a wit, there's a way. Where there's a wit, we don't want to go to war today. But the Lord of the Lashes says, nay, nay, nay. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Where there's a wit, there's a way.
A weird thing happened. In 1980, Rack&Boss produced a adaptation of Return of the King. But this movie was in a unfortunate position where it had to be a sequel to two different movies. Technically resolves the storyline of the previous adaptation of Lord of the Rings, but it has much more in common with the Rack&Boss version of The Hobbit. And it attempts to resolve this very awkwardly with a framing device, where we're at Frodo's 129th birthday, I believe.
Not Frodo's, Bilbo's.
Oh, Bilbo's 129th birthday. Somebody comments on Frodo's 9 fingers.
Frodo of the nine fingers.
And then we proceed to tell the story, but it isn't really a very satisfying sequel to Lord of the Rings, because it comes in the middle of the story. People with no familiarity with the source material are going to be very confused by this. But remember in Clerks 2, when Randall says the Lord of the Rings movies are just walking, Kevin Smith is just trolling there. This movie really is just walking. Yeah, there really isn't a lot of action. What about that sequence where Sam is tempted by the ring?
And he floods Mount Doom with flowers.
And turns the orcs into the badgers and birds?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Behold my garden of delight.
Oh, God. That made my head hurt. I hate the characterization of Sam in this.
He seems very reluctant in this version.
He seems very, fuck Frodo.
And I don't think this is a particularly good adaptation of the source material.
Not to mention, Sam looks like a very short sloth from the Goonies.
Aragorn, the titular king that's going to return, doesn't appear until it's halfway over. Apparently Gimli and Legolas are in the movie, but I didn't spot them.
Fuck if I saw him.
The Witch King sounds like Skeletor, right?
Yes.
It's not just me. Okay. The scene where Eowyn kills the Witch King is one of
the Shield Maiden of Rohan?
Is one of the best scenes in the entire Lord of the Rings thing. And in this, it comes out of nowhere. This whole movie has that problem where just stuff happens, and then you never hear from it again.
The Hobbit was the same way, but you refuse to see it, and I think it's nostalgia.
But I thought it's more condensed. Return of the King is a much bigger book and has a lot more stuff happening. Whatever. The songs in this are terrible.
And only one or two of them from the actual...
Yeah, there's not... Most of them are created for the film. The lyrics are very, very repetitive of this. We already mentioned Frodo, the nine fingers, and the ring of doom. How did he get 9 fingers? Where is the ring of doom? And you hear that a lot. So I did like Where There's a Whip, There's a Way, which is like this disco song in the middle of the movie, completely out of place. Kind of catchy.
Well, what do you think about Casey Kasem playing...
Casey Kasem is totally out of place.
As I think it's Pippin or Pippin.
Yeah, I think he's Pippin. Why is Shaggy on Middle-earth? Roddy McDowell, Sam totally didn't even realize that was him, by the way. Somehow missed. And another thing that bothers me about the Return of the King cartoon is how it ends with Gandalf saying, "Oh, you hobbits are already getting taller, and soon you'll look like men." And then he looks straight into the camera. You get it, guys? Wink, 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 wink. The Return of the King cartoon doesn't have the charm of the Hobbit cartoon.
No.
Legend tells of a ring created by an ancient evil that gave its wearer the power to enslave the world. Believed lost for centuries, it has now been found.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
So let's get to the Lord of the Rings movies people give a shit about. Honestly, I really have to admire Warner Brothers and New Line for taking a chance on this. When you think about it, it was a huge undertaking. Peter Jackson was the director who was not proven. He had done these weird independent movies in New Zealand. He wasn't really a proven director in any commercial sense. And he was asking them, hey, I want you to give me a shit ton of money. I'm going to take a bunch of people to New Zealand. I'm going to film all these movies back to back within the space of a year. You have to trust that I won't fuck this up. I guess they believed him. I think the studio probably did all right with these movies.
They were one of the highest grossing movies of all time there for a while, weren't they?
All three of them are still in the top 10 highest grossing films of all time. When The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring came out in 2001, I was just pissed that I had lost Peter Jackson, weird horror movie director, to the Hollywood blockbuster machine. That colored my perception of these movies to a degree for a long time.
I don't know, man. They're good movies.
As technical achievement, these films are massively impressive, of course. I understand why, at the time, people were so blown away by these movies. It really was giving us something we hadn't seen before. Visually speaking, there's a scope and an attention to detail that was mostly unseen at the time.
Well, yeah.
That image of the two statues at the river with their hands out, that was in all the trailers. That was the announcement to the world, hey guys, we're doing this Middle-earth thing right this time, alright?
He did.
There were fans of the series really waiting for something like this. We're waiting for a big live-action adaptation of the Lord of the Rings books.
I really like these movies.
One of the things that I admire is the amount of attention to detail. Every armor worn in this film, from the main characters down to the minor orc, was individualized. I really like the orc armor, the shields and the swords.
Yes.
They're all jagged. Saruman's tower is very impressive. I'm not putting these movies down as a technical achievement. They deserved all the special effects Oscars they won. However, this first movie especially has the weakest pacing of all of them.
Alright, I disagree.
Well, let me lay out my case then. Clarify. I own the extended version of Fellowship, but I own the theatrical cuts of the next two movies. That will color my perception of these films. JD owns the long versions of all of these. Or I should say the longer versions. There are three sequences where the story just comes to a halt. Getting everybody to Rivendell and setting up the Fellowship, yeah, that shit's important narratively. But it just seems like a lot of time is spent on everybody standing around in a circle, yelling at each other, trying to figure out what to do with this ring. I remember in the theater watching that sequence thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, get to the fucking point.
I have an argument for you with that.
Okay, lay it on me.
That one scene has to set up the scope of importance for all three films. They were just like, hey guys, we have this ring. It needs to be destroyed. Who wants to take it first? Like, oh, I'll take it. It would downsell the importance of this. It shows that the ring corrupts men and how dwarves handle it and how elves would handle it.
Those are all valid points. I still think it goes on too long.
I have just proven you're wrong.
After the big battle scene in the mines of, what is it, Moria, they come to a different set of elves in the forest.
That scene does take a little bit too long.
The movie falls into a pattern of characters being tempted by the ring. That happens repeatedly throughout this movie.
But that's the book, though.
The reason why I consider this to be the weakest of the three is that this has the least ending. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad film. The cast is very good. Ian McKellen is Gandalf.
Perfect casting.
It is. Christopher Lee as Saruman is also great, and especially interesting since Christopher Lee is a self-professed Tolkien scholar. Vigo was a name that was on nobody's lips in 2000. Nobody had really heard of this guy before. Now, you can go back and say, yeah, he was in G.I. Jane and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Stuff people had seen.
I didn't know who he was.
Yeah, nobody knew who Viggo Mortensen was.
He really defined the character Aragorn.
I do like that this movie allowed Viggo to launch his career as a leading man. Made some fascinating films since then. I really like John Rhys Davies as Gimli. In fact, Gimli is probably my favorite character.
Gimli is probably subconsciously my favorite character in these movies.
He's very entertaining. He's basically the plucky comic relief, right?
You know, yeah. I really like the rapport that him and Legolas have.
Yes.
How they go from hating each other in the beginning of Fellowship.
It's Lethal Weapon.
It is. Oh my god, it is. Anyhow.
Kate Blanchett is an elf princess. Ian Holm is a hobbit. All this is really spot on casting.
Yeah.
Like, you look at Kate Blanchett, she's very elfin. But what do you think of Orlando Bloom? For a long time, people would shit on Orlando Bloom. He's just a pretty boy. He has no talent. He can't act. Until it became apparent that he wasn't really going anywhere. He's still around.
I actually like him as Legolas.
Bloom has this Errol Flynn-like charisma that can be very well used. He is so well suited to the swashbuckler, which I think is why he was in this and
Pirates
of the Caribbean. And wasn't he in the Three Musketeers adaptation from a few years back? I think that was him. Or was that Luke
Or
Evans?
was it the Musketeer?
Oh, I can't remember. He was in one of them. Liv Tyler as Arwen. The romantic subplot adds nothing to the film.
I think a lot of it was fluffed up for the movies anyway. Like,
yeah, there's not a lot of romantic subplots in Tolkien's work in general. Liv Tyler, is she a good actress? Because she is super wooden in these movies. Everything I've seen her in, she's always very monotone.
I kind kind of like her as Arwen.
But my problem with these movies is Frodo. Sucks. Frodo always needs saving. He is
Again, the book.
He is in constant peril. The movie just needlessly milks his reluctance. I have to do this great thing, but I really don't want to, guys, but I gotta. 3 times in this movie, he gets stabbed, and people are like, oh no, Frodo's dead. JK, guys, he's alive. And I like Elijah Wood. Elijah Wood, Phantom Award-winning actor. I'm a fan. In these movies, man, I just want to smash Frodo's head in with a rock.
In the later films.
Oh, it gets worse.
When him and Sam are looking at each other like, hey.
Bromance is epic.
I mean, epic.
The gay subtext between Sam and Frodo is barely subtext. One of the posters was Sam holding Frodo. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I support LGBTQ rights for men, women, and hobbits. So anyway, the battle scenes in this movie.
Battle scenes are really cool.
Yeah, the battle scenes are cool. The Balrog is great. That's really an impressive special effect. You Shall Not Pass scene is pretty epic, man.
How can you not like that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor.
You shall not pass, bitch! The CGI with the troll, I feel like, hasn't aged well. Most of the special effects in these movies are excellent, but the CGI on that troll is rough. And what do you think of Boromir, man? Boromir's the boar, right?
Yeah.
And his death scene is super melodramatic.
But awesome.
I'm not really feeling
I mean, he stakes arrows and he's still hacking away.
Do we like Sean Bean? He's been in some good movies.
Yeah, but he dies in all of them.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff like this.
Yeah, like Black Death and...
Black Death was good. Troy and Percy Jackson. He does a lot of fantasy movies. I guess we're split on this one. I think Fellowship is easily the weakest of the 3 films.
That's fair.
The fate of the world will soon be decided. The dominion of evil grows even stronger. There is a union now between the 2 towers. The peril of the ring-bearer deepens. An unseen danger draws closer, for there is another who hunts the ring.
The thieves! They stole my precious, and we want it!
These movies were released yearly.
They were shot back to back.
But they were released yearly. That was a good way to juice up the fans. And every December for the next 3 years, woo, Lord of the Rings. 2 Towers continues the story. Sam and Frodo continue towards Mount Doom. They meet Gollum. The Fellowship heads towards Rohan. The king there is under Saruman's control. Gandalf beats the shit out of him. This pisses off Saruman, who sends an army. Meanwhile, Merry and Pippin hang out in the forest, talking to a tree. That's the plot of the 2 Towers in as few words as possible.
See, I saw the extended versions.
How does the extended version differ from that plot synopsis?
Because early on in the movie, Saruman gets the wild men from the north to give him a blood oath that they will attack Rohan.
So that's where the evil men come from.
That's where the evil men come from.
Okay, sure, whatever. This one has a better balance of plot and action. There are much fewer slow spots than in Fellowship. Out of the 3, 2 Towers is probably my particular favorite.
And not to mention the opening where Gandalf is fighting the Balrog and he's falling.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
The coolest scene in any of these movies.
You're a big Gandalf fan.
He's a wizard.
Why do wizards appeal to you so much?
I don't know, because they can do all kinds of awesome shit.
I just never wanted to be a wizard as much as you seem to be.
I just want the power to inflict pain upon people. Without getting caught.
Bangers and Mash Show, we just want to inflict pain on people without being caught. This one's got an obvious plot tumor. Frodo's trek towards Mordor. He becomes increasingly moody.
What's this time of the month?
He pulls a sword or a knife or whatever it is on Sam in one scene. And this causes them to go over the same conflict they went over at the end of the last movie, where Frodo says, I gotta continue on my own, Sam. And Sam's like, I'm not leaving you, bro. They do that in every movie. Every single movie, that same conflict plays out. Also, Faramir? How the fuck do you say that? Faramir. Boromir. Fuck these names, man. Why did J.R.R. Tolkien have to make characters with names that are so fucking hard to spell? Faramir is in this, and he doesn't...
Did you just say Fartamir?
I don't think his appearance adds much to the plot.
See, that's why I said you need to watch the extended version one time.
My life...
I know your life is so busy and hectic that you can't watch...
It's not even that. My life is short, alright? I don't have 12 hours to spend on the complete Lord of the Rings experience. Anyway, however, this movie does have something in it that I really, really like, which is Gollum. And Gollum is a fantastic character. Even though he is clearly a bad person.
The tragic character of the story.
He's undeniably pathetic.
He feels that the ring gives him that affection that he craves.
That's something else I've never understood. The ring is supposedly this great evil. In the hands of Sauron will allow him to take over the world. The effect it has on people mostly seems to be to make them really petty. People just become obsessed with the ring.
Yeah, but they're willing to kill for it. And these are non-magical beings that are doing it too.
What you're saying, in the hands of a magical being, the ring is an omen of great power, but in a regular person it just turns him into an asshole junkie.
Well, yeah.
I wonder if maybe they could have shown the power of the ring in a better way.
The thing I don't understand is, when the ring was on Sauron, why wasn't he invisible?
Because he didn't need to be invisible, man. He was just that powerful. What the fuck is Sauron, though, other than obviously saying...
He's basically the opposite of Gandalf. He's an evil Gandalf.
I know in the Hobbit movies, they say he's a necromancer who's come back from the dead.
Well, he's not actually a necromancer.
Alright, now I'm confused.
That's just what they call him in the book until they call him Sauron.
So Gollum. I think Gollum in this movie was a statement to the world that motion capture was a viable technology.
He still looks great on screen.
The special effects are amazing, but what's great about it is it allows Andy Serkis to actually give a performance. It's an amazing, once-in-a-lifetime performance.
And it still gets imitated.
They paint Gollum as having something of a split personality. And that is shown in a really clever sequence, cutting back and forth between the good Smeagol personality and the bad Gollum personality. But when you watch it, you realize it's really one angle, but it's done in a really clever way.
Yeah.
That's a really great sequence. Now, something that is maybe, I don't know, man, a little on the nose. When they first get to Rohan, the king of Rohan, Theomore, is that his name? Theoden is being manipulated by his assistant Grima Wormtongue. Gee whiz, you think that name could have been a little less obvious?
Again, the book.
He's Grima because he's grim. He whispers evil things in people's ears. Almost as if he's got a slithery worm tongue. Subtle, JR. You're probably going to say it's different in the extended cut. But it seems to me that in the theatrical cut, Grima is mostly a plot device. He's there so that Saruman knows how to get to Helm's Deep. So we can have our big battle sequence at the end of the movie.
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Aragorn gets another love interest in this.
Éowyn.
Yeah, Éowyn, the princess of Rohan, falls for him. I don't really think that adds too much to the story. What I do like is that it does take the time to have the fellowship at this kingdom and get used to the people there and develop an attachment to them, so it's worth fighting for.
There is one scene in the movie that could have been cut completely. All the stuff with Theodred, the King Theoden's dead son.
Oh yeah, that stuff adds nothing. Carl Urban's character, the other son. It's a lot of names to keep track of. A lot of plot points to juggle in this one. As an action movie, Two Towers is well done. The action sequences in this are pretty spectacular.
Especially the whole Helm's Deep scene.
That stuff is great.
Where you have elves getting blown up and flying into the air.
Legolas surfing on the shield and then he kicks the shield into somebody's chest.
That shouldn't work in real life, but...
It shouldn't.
But it did.
The sequence has this dynamic visual of the ladders being leaned up against the walls. Gimli getting tossed. Is it in this one or the next one where he says, toss me?
Oh no, it's this one.
Okay.
But don't tell the elf. This movie really starts the rapport between Gimli and Legolas.
They have this thing about counting their kills.
In the extended version, and I don't know if it's in the regular version or not.
The scene where he's sitting on the dead orc?
Yes.
That's not in the theatrical cut, no.
He's sitting on top of the dead orc eye.
Smoking a pipe.
He asks Legolas, how many did you get? And Legolas is like, I got 42. And he goes, oh, 42! But I'll have you know that I'm sitting high on 43. Legolas shoots the orc eye underneath of him. 43. Gimli says, this one's already dead. He twitched. He twitched because he's got my axe buried deep down to his nervous system.
Funny stuff. What do you think about Treebeard?
I like Treebeard.
Treebeard's an interesting visual, and it is interesting that John Rhys Davies is doing double duty as both
Well,
Gimli
I mean,
and
I really
Treebeard.
don't think that needed to be a separate actor.
The Treebeard subplot brings the none too subtle ecological subtext to the forefront. The bad guys are industry. They're cutting up the forest to make weapons. But in Middle-earth, the trees can fight back. And the film concludes with this big sequence where Ents, I believe they're called, the tree monsters, attack Isengard.
The actual trees in Fangorn that uproot and move to fight in the north or something like that.
Oh, like in Chronicles of Narnia.
Sure.
My understanding in Middle-earth, everything has a soul, right? Gandalf can talk to the animals and shit, and most of them can talk back.
Sure.
Two Towers has a much stronger ending over Fellowship. This one ends with the heroes having won a major battle. The war is far from over. Gollum is about to lead Sam and Frodo into uncertain territory. That's a more satisfying conclusion than the shrug we got last time. You just admitted that you think the ending in Fellowship is blunt.
I didn't admit that.
I think out of this trilogy, Two Towers is my personal favorite, and in my opinion, probably the best one.
Return of the King is pretty good.
The eye of the enemy is moving.
Every day, Frodo moves closer to Mordor. How do we know Frodo is alive?
What does your heart tell you?
The enemy will never let Aragorn come to the throne of Gondor.
Give him the sword of the king.
Become who you were born to be.
The precious.
That brings us to the concluding chapter of this trilogy, then, doesn't it? Sam, Frodo, Gollum continue towards Mount Doom. Gandalf heads into Gondor, which is Aragorn's kingdom. Sauron's forces march on the city. Some shit happens. This one's all about Aragorn accepting his destiny as the king of Gondor, defending his home city from the invading armies of Sauron. Then they go to, what is it, Mordor? Mm-hmm. They go to Mordor at the end, distract the omniscient eyeball of doom so that it doesn't notice Sam, Frodo, and Gollum sneaking in the back door and dropping the ring in the lava. Apparently Apparently Sauron's life force is linked to the ring, and if it's destroyed, his power ceases to be. Once again, the Sam and Frodo subplot is the weakest part of this movie, and at this point it's getting tedious, right?
Yeah. But it's also the weakest part of the books. Who cares what this fucking Hobbits are doing? Give them a paragraph at the end of the book that says they dropped it in Mount Doom.
Did you say Mount Dew?
It's in Mount Doom.
I'm liking these movies with Fardamore and Anguirus and Mount Dew.
I said Mount Doom.
Gollum is trying to hammer a wedge between Frodo and Sam's love affair. The way he does it, I think, is...
Well, he's the other woman.
Sam is continuously telling Frodo, I warned you about Gollum, man. I warned you he was no good, son. Frodo doesn't want to hear it. Gollum's plot to break them up is really weak. He crumbles up the shitty elf bread they've been eating throughout the last 2 movies, and he puts the crumbs on Sam's cloak while he's sleeping. And he says to Frodo, hey, look, he ate the food while you were sleeping. Look at this asshole.
Hey, whoa. You're cutting that down a lot. He'll do stuff to piss off Sam when Frodo's not paying attention. Then when Sam attacks, Gollum says, why is he always attacking me? Why is he always hurting me?
Why does the fat, stupid hobbit hate me? What the plot is trying to illustrate is that Frodo is succumbing to the ring.
Right. Anyhow.
J.R.R. Tolkien was arachnophobic. Spiders are...
So he's the reason that we have giant spiders in every fantasy game.
Yes, absolutely. All the spiders are hella evil in this. And that's something that's interesting about these stories, is the main plot is about all the different races coming together, putting aside their differences. Dwarves don't like elves and vice versa, but they put aside their differences for the greater good. Except, all orcs ever born are fucking evil. And they're always evil, and they always will be evil, and they must be exterminated. The intended moral was that we should put aside our differences and learn to work together. Tolkien undermined that by making all the orcs ever super, super evil, so that his good guys would still be good for slaughtering millions of them.
You know what I noticed?
What?
Did you happen to notice there was no black people?
Yeah, there are no black people on Middle-earth. That's fucked up.
So it's almost like the orcs are the black people.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, these movies are hella racist. Anyway... So Frodo eventually realizes that his best bro was right and that Gollum's no good, and him and Sam reunite by the end, and they're hugging. Sam actually carries him when he can't walk anymore. The only way they could be gayer is if they actually had sex with each other.
They're at the very end when it's all happy-go-lucky feelings, and they're looking at each other like...
Black people might not exist in Middle-earth, but gay people sure do. The whole Shelob sequence is cool. You dark cave filled with cobwebs. Even though there is the up-10 Frodo death tease, he gets stung by the spider, wrapped up, and then the orc show up, take him back to the tower. Sam goes to rescue him. Oh, is he dead? Nah, he's cool, guys. This is the Middle-earth movie most likely to remind you that Peter Jackson once directed horror films. In addition to having a giant fucking spider that eats people and a cave full of skeletons and cobwebs, there's also an army of ghosts.
Yes.
Which is a plot point the movie really pulls out of its ass. Elrond shows up to Aragorn with the magical sword. Hey, you're the king of Gondor, so you can control this army of ghosts that we haven't previously mentioned. And he's like, hey, I sure can. And
in
this...
the extended version,
oh, God.
Right before Gandalf leaves Rohan, it says something about along the river there will be a ship with black sails, and you have to go through the mountain path.
There is some setup.
When they first get to that camp where the pathway is, he looks over and sees the king of the dead.
There is a little more foreshadowing in the extended cut.
A good bit more.
Now, I understand narratively why that scene was necessary. It takes our main heroes, it takes Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli out of Gondor so that the armies can invade and things can seem really bleak. The good guys are going to lose and the bad guys are going to win. But then Aragorn shows up with his ghost army. Bad bitches, I'm back. And suddenly the tide turns in the battle. Narratively, I understand the purpose that serves. But at the same time, I don't know. What do you think about that subplot about the king of Gondor and his sons?
You mean the steward of Gondor?
Yeah, the guy who's sitting on the throne while Aragorn's off killing monsters.
It's a nice, touching subplot.
Touching.
Yeah.
A father being immolated on a funeral pyre is touching.
Yeah.
That sequence could have been cut.
That whole subplot could have been cut.
Yeah, it doesn't add a thing. Boromir's real hung up on not being Dad's favorite.
I understand Boromir having to catch Frodo and take him to Osgiliath to get him that close to Mordor or whatever.
Wait, where does he take him?
Osgiliath.
You nerd.
That's the city that they're protecting. It's Osgiliath. I understand the importance of that. But that whole thing with his father being an asshole and liking Boromir more...
It doesn't add a damn thing. It does give us that really nice scene of, is it Merry that sings while the army's about to
Pippin.
meet? It's Pippin that sings when they're about to meet on the battlefield. That's a cool scene. And they brought that music back for the most recent Hobbit trailers.
Huh.
This is maybe the most combat heavy of the Lord of the Rings films. This is a full-blown war movie.
Yeah.
There are long sequences of combat in this.
Again, it contributes a lot more to the Gimli, Legolas rapport.
And some of it's bullshit. This is the most monster-heavy of all the Lord of the Rings movies.
Legolas climbing up a giant-ass elephant.
Yeah, the Oliphant, which is a totally different word than elephant, guys.
Well, it is.
Scene where he climbs up on the elephant accident and breaks the saddle. That's all pretty bitchin'. Slides off the trunk like it ain't no thing.
And then Gimli's like, it still only counts as one.
All that shit's cool. Trolls firing catapults at the white walls of Gondor. The Nazgul on the fucking dragon swooping down and throwing people up in the air.
I'm a big enough nerd to know that the Nazgul are actually the things that the Black Riders are riding on. But in the movie, they refer to them all as Nazgul.
They're technically Nazgul riders, yes?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. You're turning me into one of you fucking nerds. Most of this movie would look bitchin' spray painted on the side of my van.
Well, it would. If you had a van.
One of the subplots that I do actually like is, what's the chick's name? Eowyn?
Eowyn.
She dresses as a man to ride into battle with her father to protect her dad.
She takes Mary, and I like the fact that Mary wants to go to...
He wants to help out as best he can. This movie introduces the Witch King. He's the baddest of all the ring rafts. After he kills the king of Rohan, he says, "No man can murder me." And that's when Eowyn pulls off her helmet and says, "Surprise, motherfucker!" and stabs the fuck out of him.
Okay, so in the extended version, when Gandalf is riding up to stop the king from setting himself and Faramir on fire...
Right, and then kicks him with the horse.
Yeah, before he gets there, the Witch King actually comes down on his Nazgul right in front of Gandalf. Gandalf's like, I ain't taking none of your shit.
That scene's actually in the cartoon, isn't it?
I can't remember.
I think it is. I feel like the second war scene at the end, where the heroes go to Mordor to help out Sam and Frodo, I don't feel like that adds as much. There aren't as many notable sequences in that.
In the extended version?
Oh, Jesus.
You actually see the mouth of Sauron.
The mouth. To go with the giant omniscient eyeball of doom.
Weird mouth thing. Very creepy. Trying to convince them that Frodo is dead. And Aragorn rides up to him, takes out his sword, lops off his head. Man, that's badass.
Wow. The real climax is Sam and Frodo and Gollum in the cave. Gollum gets a suitable send-off. Frodo seems to finally become corrupted by the ring. Puts it on. Gollum jumps on his back, and it's like an invisible fight scene.
Done really well. Bites off Frodo's finger, and
falls into the lava.
He's like, I got it, bitches! Frodo pushes him off.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah. Although they do the same thing in Batman.
What?
The Michael Keaton Batman with cards instead of a ring. Pushes Joker
Even
into
when we're not talking about Batman, you managed to bring up Batman.
Because it happens. Knocks Joker into the pit of chemicals.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the cards falling into their hair.
You're right.
They do the same thing.
And then they do the same thing in Batman Forever with Two-Face's coin.
Oh, God, they do! Son of a bitch!
Anyway, that's a good ending, man. Mordor collapses and all the orcs die in a pit of fire. The heroes are victorious. Sam and Frodo are on the mountainside as the volcano's erupting. Instead of making out, which is what they would do in real life, instead Sam says, "Oh yeah, there's this girl back in the Shire I would have married if I'd survived." Don't they actually do hold each other and we're gonna die, man?
The Eagles come down and say, "Hey guys, break it up. Leave a little room for the Holy Ghost."
Now that would have been a somewhat inconclusive ending to the series. Then there's another scene. Frodo, awash in gold, awakens in his bed and all his buddies are there and they're jumping up on the bed and they're excited. Sure, whatever. That would have been a good ending, but they give us one more. Aragorn accepts his role as the king of Gondor. He gets married to Arwen all. He says none of this would have been possible without those guys. And everybody bows in honor of the Hobbit. And man, that's actually a really good ending. And then all the hobbits have to go back to the Shire, go to a bar, and share a brew. And then Frodo has to write all of this down in a book. Sam has to get married to that girl he mentioned, even though we all know his real love is Frodo. You're thinking to yourself, okay, that's gotta be the end, right? Nope, there's more. The elves and Bilbo have to get on a boat and leave Middle-earth forever. They're going to the Middle-earth version of the afterlife. This is a very symbolic ending. Hobbits and the elves, all the magical things, are leaving. Galadriel even says, "So begins the age of man." All the magic in the world is going away now. Their boat rides off into the sunset. Okay, that's gotta be the ending, right? Nope, there's one more. Sam's gotta go back to his home, go with his family into his hobbit hole, close the door, and then finally, thankfully, it says the end. Now, I get it. The movie begins with a hobbit in his hobbit hole. It has to end with a hobbit in his hobbit hole. But it's just like, dude.
If they would have had Frodo and Sam have sex on Mount Doom, it would have ended with a hobbit in a hobbit hole.
I think we've just lost all our LGBT listeners.
Oops.
Does the extended cut have 6 more endings?
No.
Okay.
I don't think it does. I know that last night when I was watching this movie, and it got to the part where Gandalf crowns Aragorn, and there was still a half hour. And I said, fuck that. I am over this shit today.
Obviously, this movie was a big deal to the Lord of the Rings aficionado. Was it pretty epic for you?
Yeah. And then I saw the extended version. To me, is paced a lot better, and it does answer a lot of plot holes.
Even though it's 6 hours long.
Even though it is like 6 hours long. But it doesn't feel like 6 hours.
Special extended Blu-ray edition is 263 minutes. Oh god, look at this. IMDb languages, English, Old English, and then the fucking made-up elf languages.
Oh my god.
How many movies are in Sindarin IMDb? Yeah, just these. For me, by this point in the Lord of the Rings phenomenon, I was burned out. And I didn't even see this movie until it hit DVD. I'm not even sure I saw it then, because I was watching the movie and there was a lot of stuff I did not remember. I must have had my finger on the fast forward button throughout the whole thing. They're all good movies, of course. They're all very well-made films.
I remember you having a lot of contention for this film because it won every single Oscar
It
that
did.
year.
It won every Academy Award it was nominated for. And I don't remember what else was nominated in 2003, but by the end of that night, it was like, oh my god, yes, Lord of the Rings, just fucking give them all the awards now. Everything from Best Picture down to Best Song. A lot of people felt that was deserved. Neither of the previous Lord of the Rings films won Best Picture, and a lot of nerds thought they should have. I would say they're good films. It's not really my thing, but each of these movies have great moments in them. They're all really long.
I remember you having a lot of contention for the specific fact that year it won every category it could have been nominated for.
It did.
It won everything but animated feature.
Pretty much. 11 Academy Awards.
I really like the films. They are probably about as close to the perfect Lord of the Rings film that we're ever going to get.
The hardcore ringers still bitch, saying they've left this, and this out.
My god, how much more do you want in those movies?
How many downvotes do you think this episode's gonna get?
I don't know.
My dear Frodo, you asked me once if I had told you everything there was to know about my adventures. I may not have told you all of it.
Bilbo Baggins, I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. You'll have a tale or two to tell when you come back.
Can you promise that I will come back?
No. And if you do, you will not be the same.
Can we talk a minute? That book should not have been made into 3 movies.
No, it absolutely shouldn't have.
At most 2.
Originally, the plan was to do 2, which was conceivable. Would have been stretching it a little thin, but when you bloat it up with action sequences, 2 would have been serviceable. 3, man, a trilogy out of that little book. The biggest complaint about all these films is that they're too goddamn long, and there's so much stuff in all of them that is completely superfluous. I think we all agree, if you took those 3 movies and you cut them all together into one film, it'd probably be one pretty good movie. Stretched out over 9 hours. Come on, guys. An adaptation of The Hobbit was inevitable. The film rights were out there. A lot of people wanted more Middle-earth. The original plan was for Guillermo del Toro, who is also rather Hobbit-like, let's face it. The original plan was for del Toro to direct The Hobbit 2-parter. The idea is that the first Hobbit movie would have been much more of a del Toro film. The second one, make a transitional film between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, with its dwarves and dragons, underground kingdoms. That del Toro was a good match for The Hobbit.
That's fair.
However, there was production issues. These films had an extended pre-production. MGM had financial issues. Guillermo del Toro didn't want to spend the rest of his life on fucking Middle-earth, and I can't say I blame him. They probably wrote Peter Jackson a big check. Halfway through the second movie, they announced it was going to be 3. They had already started work on the second one when he said, oh yeah, it's going to be 3 movies, guys, because of more money. Having Peter Jackson come back, on paper, sounded like a good idea. It would add this consistent visual approach throughout the entire universe. The first movie of this unexpected trilogy was The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey from 2012. We talked about this movie already on the Phantom Awards, our very first. We even gave it a couple of awards, which now seems inconceivable because everybody's so fucking tired of it. I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater. I remember thinking it was okay, but I also remember thinking it was undeniably bloated and padded out ridiculously. It has 2 very long prologues.
Yes.
I don't know if we really need to see Frodo again. We would have had to have found out about Smaug and the Arkenstone eventually. I still think that prologue was long.
That should have been the prologue that we had.
Yeah.
Stuff about Bilbo starting to write the book and reminiscing. That's all hacky bullshit.
It was in there just to make the movie longer.
That whole thing could have been cut completely and I wouldn't have missed it.
Let's talk about Smaug. In the cartoon, and for decades, people just pronounce the dragon's name as Smaug.
Well, it's Smaug.
Haha, get it, dragon, smoke, Smaug, ah. But in this one, they enunciate every vowel.
Smaug.
I remember when the trailers for the second movie first came up, guy in the trailer pronounced it Smaug. Damn. Anyway, there are a lot of subplots invented for this movie. They invent the subplot about Goblin King who has a bone to pick with Thorin so that Thorin gets an archenemy. And there's a lot of action involving that. In the book, Gandalf disappears for large portions of time, and we never really find out what he's doing. And in this, we find out what he's doing. He's investigating the resurrection of Sauron. A thing that got a lot of criticism. The introduction of Radagast the Brown, the other wizard. Tell him about the 5 wizards.
Oh boy. Do you want the whole alien explanation?
Give it to him.
God.
Rough and dirty.
The wizards are actually a starry spirit being sent down by the Valor to shape Earth. So really the Astari are angels, if you nerdwank it enough. And then if you nerdwank that enough, going by the ancient astronaut theorist point of view, then the wizards are actually aliens.
Yeah, so Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast, and the other 2 that nobody talks about are aliens.
Well, They're Alatar and Palando.
Palando? That sounds like the shit you put on your sandwich.
Right, but it's not. I think you're supposed to pronounce it Palando.
Whatever.
The point being, they're the Blue Wizards,
Gandalf.
which go to the north and supposedly fail their mission and start a cult. Anybody knows about them?
Those guys suck.
There is artwork of one using a bow, and they were sent down by the hunting valor. But also, Sauron, he's like one step above what the Astari is, but he's basically an evil wizard.
He's the devil, right?
No, Malik is the devil, but that's another whole thing.
Yeah, let's not.
Just read the Silmarillion, and it tells you what they are. Gandalf's actual name is Orion.
They actually reference that in one of the Lord of the Rings movies, don't they?
No.
Okay.
They call him Mithrandir, which is the Elven name for Gandalf.
Jesus. Okay, I'm going to give my characters a really hard to spell and pronounce names, and also 7 other really hard to pronounce names.
Gandalf really does have like 7 names, because there's like...
So Radagast, he's the brown wizard, bird shit on his shoulder, and he has a sled piloted by bunnies.
And actually, also, Gandalf is the most powerful of the wizards. He didn't want the responsibilities. They gave the responsibility of being the leader of the Astari to Sauron, which is why he's Sauron the White.
Okay.
Which is why...
When Gandalf evolves into a more dangerous Pokemon.
Or when Gandalf comes back as Gandalf the White, he says, I am Sauron, or at least what Sauron should be. That's why, because he takes over the mantle of the White Wizard.
Okay, so Radagast the Bunny Wizard and the Goblins subplot, that's all the stuff they added to the first Hobbit movie to make it long, and I haven't even mentioned the rock giants yet.
All that stuff is gotta be in something.
The evil goblin prince, what is it, Asgore the Defiler or some shit?
Something like that.
I think all of that was made up for the movie, but everything else were taken from obscure appendices somewhere.
I know that eventually Galadriel comes up, which we might see in the next movie. With her own power, she destroys Dol Guldur.
Dumbledore? She destroys Dumbledore?
Dol Guldur. I knew you were going to say it. Dol Guldur, the fortress that Gandalf is slamming his staff down.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry, let's talk about the movie.
We are in deep nerd territory here. Martin Freeman is Bilbo. Great casting. Martin Freeman's whole shtick from Sherlock and The Office and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is that he is a stiff upper lip Englishman and a bunch of crazy shit is happening around him and he is having none of it, which is Bilbo's entire character arc. He's a normal person who's plucked out of his ordinary, slow-paced life into this insane adventure. Man, this shit is crazy. Perfect casting. He adds a lot of humor. He has his own story arc where he has to prove himself to the dwarves that he's not a load, that he's going to actually be helpful on this quest. They overdo it with him saving the one dwarf from being stabbed by a goblin or some shit. It serves its purpose.
So let's talk about the fire cones.
The fire cones.
The pine cones of fire. If I remember correctly in the book, he actually sends a flare up into the sky.
Right.
Rains fire bolts.
That would have been way cooler. Why'd they go with flaming pine cones?
I might be imagining that.
Okay.
In the cartoon, he hurls lightning down at the ground.
Right, yeah, I remember that now.
I don't know where they got the pine cone thing from. It was cool.
I guess. Now, as in the book, as in the cartoon, there are a lot of fucking dwarves, and most of them do not have characterization. There's a fat one, there's an old one, there are brothers, there's a grumpy one, there's a young one, on and on and on. I don't remember the names of which ones are which. You're lucky I know who Thorin is, okay?
Thorin Oakenshield. Son of Thrain, son of... Never mind.
And we get the gritty origin story of why he's called Oakenshield when he picks up the log in the fight. Oakenshield, guys, you see what we did there?
This is the thing we're referencing.
What do you think of Richard Armitage as Thorin?
He's alright.
Aside from Martin Freeman, I don't think any of the new actors really clicked the way they did in the first trilogy.
And even Ian McKellen. Big fan of Ian McKellen.
Gandalf's still awesome, but...
It seems like he's phoning this one in a little bit.
When you read about how he felt about the production of The Hobbit, he said at one point he was standing on a green screen and he had no idea what was going on. And that is somewhat evident in his performance.
Yeah.
But what do you think of Gandalf going nuts on the goblins in the last act, is killing the shit out of 100 goblins?
Fucking awesome.
Foehammer, the goblin cleaver, or whatever the fuck it's called.
Comes in and slams down his staff and it shockwaves.
That action sequence in the Goblin Kingdom is one of the best parts of the movie, where they're jumping across the bridges and they're rolling the boulder down. All that shit's cool.
Shatters rocks with his staff and shit. That's all pretty cool.
One thing about the Goblin King, his chin appears to resemble testicles. Yes?
Sure, but it's supposed to be a tumor.
He's got a ball chin. He's got a ball face. He's got balls on his face.
Okay.
First act is longer than it needs to be. I like the humor. I like the trolls. I like the songs. That magical map is a blatant plot device, but that's right out of the book. So what are you going to do? We have this map that can only be activated on a certain night during a certain time, and it just happens to be that time. Am I the only one who thought there was a little sexual tension between Gandalf and Gadriel in this one?
Well, there's supposed to be.
Saruman, Christopher Lee, is back. If you know that his scenes were shot in England because he refuses to leave the UK these days, it becomes really obvious that he is not in the same room with the other actors. The first Hobbit movie, it was alright, but it was way too long.
Yeah.
Truly, the tales and songs fall utterly short of your enormity, O Smaug, the stupendous. Found something in the Goblin Tunnels.
What did you find?
My courage.
Good. You'll need it.
Thief. Where are you? Come now. Don't be shy.
The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug came last year in 2013. Can't remember the last time a major nerd event of this scale was met with such resignation. Everybody saw this movie, but nobody was really that excited about it. And that's a rare thing. We're part of the problem. We see these in the theater, and the whole time we're just bitching, but we do it anyway. If we're not going to enjoy the movie, why do we pay the $14 to see it? Because we're fucking nerds. So this one gives us Mirkwood with the spiders. What you think of that stuff?
That was okay.
As with everything in this movie, it was too long. The scenes where they're lost in the forest go on and on, but the spiders were cool.
It does remind you that Peter Jackson was once a horror director.
Yeah, though not as much as Return of the King did. There is a little bit of horror ambiance with the spiders.
The whole bear sequence.
In the first trilogy, they had to cut stuff out to make it fit in the movie, and in this one, they had to add stuff, so nothing could get cut out from the source material. What's the werebear's name?
Oh god, I don't even know.
It's one of the most extraneous subplots they add. They bring back Legolas. He has a girlfriend who looks like Link from Legend of Zelda. Even though her and Legolas are ostensibly together, she begins to develop romantic feelings for one of the dwarfs. While
they're not actually together. Legolas wants her to be with him.
Oh, Legolas got friend-zoned?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. But she starts to develop feelings for the handsome dwarf.
Keely?
In the first movie, Thorin gets his archenemy in the form of this goblin with a hook hand. And in this one, Legolas gets an unnecessary archenemy.
Bold.
You can see so clearly where they added shit. Instead of rolling out on the river, on the barrels, like they did in the book, there has to be a big action sequence. Legolas is jumping around, bouncing on the dwarves' heads. Axes are getting tossed through the air, and heads are getting tossed through the air.
There is something that I really hate in this movie. They use GoPro cameras to show the barrels going down in the water. The quality of the movie even looks different.
Did Legolas need to be in the movie? Did this romantic subplot need to be in the movie? Did there need to be a 20-minute action sequence?
Well,
with the
I don't know
barrels?
that he needed to be in the movie, but it does make a little bit of sense in Stendril.
Lee Pace's character.
He is Legolas' father.
Right. We spend a lot of time in Lake Town. There's some political intrigue in there. One of the dwarves gets hit with a poison arrow. There's some angst over the key to the Lonely Mountain that may or may not work. For me, what Desolation of Smaug was all about was the fucking dragon. Was Smaug himself. That is the saving grace of this entire movie. Holy shit, that dragon is awesome.
Yes, he is.
It conveys the sheer size of the creature. When you watch the cartoon, Bilbo sneaks into Smaug's lair, haunting him, and it comes off as very carefree. But in this one, you get a real sense of how terrified he is, and why shouldn't he? Because holy shit, there's a giant dragon who wants to kill me there.
He's a fire drake.
We've never really gotten a dragon on that scale before. What's the last time there's been a really great dragon on screen? What, Reign of Fire? I mean, come on.
What about Dragonheart?
Yeah, maybe. That is this movie's crowning achievement. What a great character. What a great realized character. Gandalf's subplot of this one is really weary. He's investigating tombs and castles. And there's this belabored showdown with the nearly reborn Sauron where lights are flashing. He's hanging in a cage off a cliff. Who cares? My biggest problem with the Desolation of Smaug, I'm sure you remember this, when we saw this in the theater, the dwarves are trying to keep the dragon from escaping. They bathe him in gold. He breaks out. He flies out of the mountain. He's flying towards Lake Town. He's going to burn it to the fucking ground. The movie, after 3 hours, just got really, really good, and then it ends!
The next one is going to be non-stop action. What else can they do besides killing the dragon and having the Battle of the Five Armies?
Well, it's even in the title. Yeah, they changed the title from There and Back Again. The whole thing's going to be action, which in its own way is probably going to be tedious as hell, because the action sequences in the Hobbit movies have been, thus far, very tiring.
I disagree with that.
The second movie, it should have ended with the Smaug plotline being resolved. Should have ended with him getting the arrow in the chest. That would have been a great ending.
I know, now we're going to have to sit through a 5-minute blast time on The Hobbit.
What do you think of Benedict Cumberbatch as the voice of Smaug?
Very effective.
He's good. At the same time, did they even need to hire a famous person? Because his voice is so digitally distorted that you can't even really tell it's him. For all the shit we give Cumberbatch, he does have this very strong voice. Yeah. Did we mention Luke Evans? Luke Evans, another one of those actors that just started showing up in major Hollywood movies. Nobody has any clue who this dude was, but now he's in every franchise. He's Bard. He's fine. It's a Luke Evans part. It suited to his talents.
He's Bard the Bardsman.
Yeah.
You brought upon them only ruin and death.
You've won the mountain, is that not enough?
Now, we defend it.
I came to reclaim something of mine.
Will you have peace or war?
I will have war.
If you've seen the commercials for the next Hobbit movie, the hashtag they're advertising this with is one last time. Even the advertising is exasperated and wants it to be over. Just got back from the third and final Hobbit film, The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies. General thoughts?
The war stuff was good.
The opening scene, Smaug burning down Lake Town, was a bit disappointing for me. I thought it was rather short. I don't know why that wasn't the end of the last movie.
Because it guaranteed people came back for this one.
It seems like a cheap thing to end the previous movie on a cliffhanger and then resolve that literally within the first 15 minutes of the next one.
Why not have that be an hour?
I gladly would have watched more of Smaug burning down the town.
He is so underutilized.
The only thing I really liked about the last one was the frickin' dragon. I really wanted more Smaug in this one.
Benedict Cumberbatch's voice is just so perfect for that dragon.
That was a bit of a disappointment, especially since the movie spends an hour on the setup, the next part of the story, with Thorin in the underground castle succumbing to dragon sickness, which means he's overcome with greed and begins acting like a big cock to everybody around him.
It's almost like he was acting real snake-like, like a dragon.
Ooh, all that stuff was tedious. I mean, I get it. The movie went on way too long, focusing on Thorin's growing obsession with the missing Arkenstone, secretly in Bilbo's possession. Anybody who's familiar with the Hobbit story knows that the elves show up demanding they have their jewels back, and the people of Lake Town show up saying, we helped kill the dragon, maybe you could chip us in a little gold so we can rebuild our town that's got burned to the ground. There's a sequence in particular where Thorin steps onto, it's the part of the castle that was covered in molten gold in the previous film, and he's standing on the sheet of gold and begins to hallucinate. That moment in particular was melodramatic.
Melodramatic, but I understand what they were trying to do with it.
That could have been conveyed in a less showy manner. Thorin's consuming greed was overdone.
Yes.
A little too much of that.
I do like some of the build-up, because...
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's a solid hour of setup.
Like in the cartoon, it's the humans knock on the door, hey, we want our money, bitch. The elves are like, hey, we want some money too. And then Gandalf comes in and says, hey, there's orcs coming. Then let's all fight. It just takes you out of the moment.
Though I admire the economy of that cartoon, there is some interesting stuff in that long build-up sequence. We get to see a lot more of Luke Evans as Bard, and a lot more of Lee Pace as whatever Legolas's dad's name is.
Thendril.
Luke Evans is starting to grow on me. He's better in this than he is in just about anything else I've seen him in.
I think I like his Dracula a little bit better.
Now that I know that Lee Pace was also Ronin, every time he talks, it's like, oh, it's
That's
Ronin.
Ronin.
Yeah. Right before the elves and the armies of man are ready to attack the dwarf stronghold, the rest of the dwarf army shows up, and there's Billy Connolly as Thorin's cousin, was it?
Yeah.
Who rides on a fluffy pig. A really bizarre element that I enjoyed. Billy Connolly is always a welcome presence. Eventually, the orcs or whatever, the bad guys show up, and everybody agrees to put their differences aside for the time being to kick some monster ass.
Yep, they do a decent job of.
There's plenty of decent action. One of the things the bad guys do, they have a troll wearing a battering ram in its head, and it rams the wall, collapses the wall, and then the troll either passes out or drops over dead. I'm not sure which.
I go with dead.
That was amusing, and there was a lot of other neat action stuff. You like the moment where the dwarves slam all their shields down and point their spears out.
Right as the orc armies get ready to meet up with the dwarven army, the elves hop over the dwarves and start kicking the shit out of orcs. Yeah!
There's a great moment where Lee Pace's character, Legolas's dad,
Thendril,
is on his giant war elk, runs across a bridge.
Is it an elk? I always thought of it as a moose.
I think it's an elk. He rams the bridge and knocks a bunch of orcs off of it, and picks up 6 orcs with the antlers of this creature he's riding, and then chops all their heads off in one swoop.
And he takes out a whole orc army himself.
A problem I had with the previous Hobbit film is that Bilbo's role was diminished. He has a lot more to do in this movie. He helps out in the final battle. As in the book, he gets knocked on the head and spends the rest of the battle unconscious.
I'm glad they actually did that. I didn't think they would.
War is really no place for hobbits. In the first movie, they introduced this character of Azog the Defiler as Thorin's archenemy, and then in the second movie, they introduced a second orc with a fucked up face as
Bolg.
He's set up as Legolas's archenemy. Both of those characters come to blows with their proverbial foes. And what do you think of that big battle scene between Thorin and Azog? And let's just go ahead and throw out a spoiler warning.
Spoiler alert! Went on a little bit too long.
At one point, Azog has a big stone on a chain, and he's swinging that around. They're on top of a frozen waterfall, which is a neat image, but he's swinging this mace around, and it's causing the ice to crack.
Thought never crosses our mind. I bet that ice is going to break off.
Yes, Thorin picks up the stone, throws it back at the orc, and he falls under the water. But instead of just ending the fight there, it goes on for another 5 minutes, and what's stupid is Thorin's on top of the ice. You can see through the ice, you can see Azog the Defiler floating through the ice, and instead of just stabbing him there when he's prone. He waits for the orc to stab a knife through the ice into his foot for him to pop out, and they fight for a little more.
And then he lets him stab him.
Thorin is fatally wounded, but still manages to deliver the killing blow to Azog the Defiler. Actually dies. Startled me. Gets run through with the orc captain's Nito sword hand. Didn't expect him to actually fucking die. He's one of 3 dwarves that bite the dust in this.
I'm assuming that that's how it happens in the book.
One of the other dwarves that bites the dust is Skeely, which resolves the tedious romantic triangle between Legolas and his lady friend, who has a name. Personally, I was happy to see that subplot resolved. I don't think anybody liked that. But what did you think of Legolas' showdown with Bog?
Did we talk about the time that he's running up the falling boulders?
Bog is fighting with Turel, getting ready to deliver the killing blow. Legolas jumps on the back of a troll, steers it into a tower, knocks the tower over a crevasse in the rocks. Legolas and the orc proceed to fight on this bridge as it's crumbling. Repeatedly, people get knocked through the bridge. It reminded me a lot of the river sequence in the previous movie. Yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, this is just a little too overtly stylized, a little too John Woo.
Yeah.
Even at the end where the tower is collapsing, Legolas in slow motion leaps on the falling bricks to safety. That didn't strain believability.
And then there was the kamikaze werebear.
Puts in a brief appearance. When the eagles finally show up, the werebear dude takes a leap off of the eagle, transforms in mid-drop, and then tears up some orcs as it hits the ground. I was expecting that character to play a bigger role. He didn't really add anything.
I'm pretty sure he plays a bigger role in the writings.
Something else that got a lot of build-up, but the film didn't do anything with, is the orcs have a set of giant subterranean death worms who get a big introduction and are pretty cool looking. They show up, they roar, they go back underground, and are not seen again for the rest of the film. Why put the giant death worms in the movie if you're not going to use them? I'm just saying, stop teasing me. Gandalf, last seen in a cage.
Hanging in Dol Guldur.
What is it? Galadriel?
Galadriel.
Gadriel.
Galadriel.
Yeah, whatever.
Galadriel.
Yeah, Cate Blanchett's character shows up along with Elrond and Saruman. A lot of this movie's purpose. This is the last time you're going to see these characters. Let's give everybody one last hurrah. It was fun to see those guys again. It was fun to see Christopher Lee, or rather Christopher Lee's stunt double, kicking the shit out of some ghost. That sequence ends with sudden appearance by Sauron's ominous eyeball of doom. What happens then?
Then Galadriel goes Super Saiyan.
She proceeds to magic the fuck out of Sauron's specter. I thought that sequence was a trifle ridiculous, where her skin turns green and she starts speaking in a deep voice and a little overdone.
And the writings that they got that from, she doesn't turn all dark and spooky and all that shit. She just...
The film does end. The orcs are defeated. Dwarves get their gold back. Everybody's happy. Bilbo heads home.
And then the movie has 4 endings.
Which is 2 less than Return of the King, so they're doing better. They have a funeral for Thorin, and they bid Bilbo farewell. Bilbo and Gandalf return to the Shire, and Gandalf says something about how magic reading should be used sparingly, foreshadowing. You remember that other trilogy from 10 years ago that everybody really liked? Funny little sequence. Bilbo gets back to his village, and the other hobbits there assumed he was dead, were auctioning off all of his stuff.
Dirty rapscallion.
That was amusing. We flash forward back to Ian Holm, and that's just a brief little scene, though, and that's the last we will see of Middle-earth for the time being, and hopefully for quite some time to come. What are your overall thoughts on Hobbit 3 with a Vengeance?
It's a good movie. It does have, all the other Hobbit movies, a lot of filler, to the point that it's too much.
It suffers from most of the problems of the previous 2 films.
Now, I want to see the extended versions just because, A, I'm a glutton for punishment, and B, I'm curious about how much more they can fit into that story.
What would they add? This is probably the best of the Hobbit films because it has the least amount of filler and the most amount of plot. My biggest problem is either they should have included the Smaug sequences in the last film, or they should have done more with it, or they should have cut out middling stuff in the middle with everybody arguing about who gets the gold. And I was reading online the other day about how some enterprising young soul has done what we've all been wanting to do, has cut together a short version of the Hobbit films. They call it the Hobbit Dwarfed Edition. From the first 2 parts, it's about up to 2 hours, so presumably the final film will be in the 3-hour range, which is what everybody would want in the first place. It wouldn't surprise me if Warner Brothers releases a condensed cut, because you know they're going to want to milk this franchise for everything they can get out of it. There is a sizable audience for the short, good version of The Hobbit. Over these 3 films, there is probably enough material for one pretty good 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
Odds very well may be that this might be the last Middle-earth film we ever get until they reboot it again in 12 years. Tolkien's son, the heir to the Middle-earth Empire, has been rather adamant that he's not interested in selling the film rights to to the remaining, the Silmarillion and the other unused short stories, he's not been pleased with the direction of the Peter Jackson films. I believe his comment was, Peter Jackson turned my father's books into action movies for 12-year-olds. A bit dismissive, but I think that's kind of correct.
Most of those action sequences are in the book.
J.R.R. Tolkien just made these books so he would have a story to tell with this really neat language he invented. Some people are bitching about that. They're saying, oh, the Tolkien son is greedy. But I think it's good, because I don't want to see Peter Jackson's 10-part, 30-hour adaptation of the Silmarillion, guys. I don't want to see that movie.
I'm here with you. I really feel like we need a break.
Peter Jackson definitely needs to spend some time away from Middle-earth.
If they do the Silmarillion, get someone else to do it. Get somebody that's not going to turn it into a 10-book fiasco.
As I was with Lord of the Rings, I'm just burnt out on Middle-earth and hobbits and orcs and all this shit for the time being. I want to see Peter Jackson pursue other stuff. I'd like to see him go back and maybe make some smaller movies, though hopefully something better than The Lovely Bones. So that's our final thoughts on the Hobbit franchise. Let us never speak of it again. I'm sure JD could go on for another 6 hours about Lord of the Rings, but I'm fucking done talking about this. Faramir, Anguirus, and Dumbledore.
I want you guys to please write Zack and tell him how short this one is compared to the crap that he wants to talk about.
I think spending an hour on the Ghoulies tetralogy is a time much better spent. You can contact us at bangersandmash88@yahoo.com. That's the word bangers. That's the letter N. That's the word mash. That's the number 88@yahoo.com. We have a Facebook group, www.facebook.com/thebangersandmashshow. Thanks, as always, to all our fans and listeners and supporters. I know we thank you guys at the end of every episode, but we mean it. We're coming up on the end of the year. We're going to do our traditional Christmas episode next, and then the Phantom Awards in January are coming up, guys. I know some of you do eagerly anticipate that. You have anything more to say on this topic? Obviously you do.
Does it matter if I do or not?
It doesn't, because I'm going to have to take the time now to edit this podcast, my precious podcast.
Really? That's the best pun you could do?